I thought it was just another regular Tuesday dinner. My mom had made her usual pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. We were all sitting around the table. My dad, my mom, my younger sister, Harper, and me. Everything felt normal, until my father set down his fork, looked straight at me, and said those 5 words that would change everything. "We are taking your office space." No explanation, no apology, just a flat announcement like he was telling me to pass the salt. I felt a jolt of surprise, but kept my face neutral. I nodded and told him I would clear it out tomorrow. Inside, I told myself it was fine that I could work from somewhere else. But what I did not know then was that this was only the beginning of a chain of events that would make me realize just how little I had been valued all along. Before we dive deeper into what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you are curious about how this situation unfolded, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you will not want to miss what happened the next morning. My name is Alonzo, and I am 32 years old. I work remotely for a tech company based on the West Coast, which means my hours are flexible but my deadlines are strict. 2 years ago, right when the pandemic started turning everyone's lives upside down, I made the decision to move back in with my parents. Their house is in a quiet suburb outside Philadelphia, one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone, and the houses all look similar with their brick facades and neat lawns. At first it was supposed to be temporary. I figured I would save some money, maybe build up my emergency fund, and then find my own place within 6 months. But you know how these things go. 6 months turned into a year then, into 2 years. I was not living there for free, though. That is important to understand. Every single month I paid my parents $1,200. That covered my share of rent, utilities, groceries, everything. I bought my own food half the time and helped out with household expenses whenever something came up. When the water heater broke last winter, I paid for half of the replacement cost. When my mom wanted to upgrade the kitchen appliances, I chipped in. I was not a freeloader. The office space they were now taking from me was not even a real office to begin with. It was a small guest room on the 2nd floor, maybe 10 feet by 12 feet, with one window that looked out onto the backyard. When I first moved in, that room was just empty space, with beige walls and old carpet. I asked my parents if I could use it as my workspace, and they agreed. But here is the thing. I did not just move in and take it over. I invested in that room. I spent $3,000 of my own money to make it functional. I painted the walls, a clean white installed floating shelves for my books and equipment, bought a solid desk that did not wobble during video calls, and even added some acoustic foam panels, because I have a lot of client meetings and needed the sound quality to be professional. That was my space. I built it. Now let me tell you about my family dynamics, because that matters here. My father, Gerald, is 61 years old. He retired 3 years ago from a manufacturing company where he worked for 35 years. He is the kind of man who likes control, who likes things done his way, who does not really ask for your opinion so much as inform you of decisions he has already made. My mother, Diane, is 58 and works part-time at the local library. She is softer than my dad, but she always takes his side. I think in all my years growing up, I can count on one hand the number of times she disagreed with him out loud. Then there is my sister Harper. She is 28, 4 years younger than me. 3 months ago, she lost her job at a marketing startup that went under. Since then, she has been living with our parents, sleeping in her old bedroom, and supposedly looking for work. I say supposedly because from what I could see, she spent most of her time playing video games and scrolling through social media. She did not pay rent. She did not help around the house. She just existed there, and my parents were completely fine with it. I have always been the type to avoid conflict. I would rather keep the peace than start an argument, you know? So whenever my dad asked me to fix something around the house, cut the grass, paint the fence, repair a leaking pipe, I just did it. I never complained. I figured that was part of living there, part of being a good son. But looking back now, I can see I was doing a lot more than my fair share. My relationship with Harper had grown distant over the years. We used to be close when we were kids, but as adults, we barely talked. I think she resented my success in some way. I had a stable career, good income, professional accomplishments, while she was struggling to find her footing. But instead of that motivating her, it just seemed to make her bitter. So that Tuesday night when my dad dropped his announcement, the whole table went quiet for a second. I set down my own fork and asked him why. He explained in that matter-of-fact tone he uses for everything that Harper needed her own space to focus on her job search. My mother nodded along, adding that Harper needed privacy, that it would help her get organized and motivated. I pointed out the obvious. I was working full-time in that room. I had expensive equipment set up. I needed a quiet space for my client calls and video conferences. I had deadlines and meetings scheduled every single day. My dad just waved his hand like he was brushing away a fly. "You can work from the dining table or your bedroom," he said. As if it were that simple. As if my professional life did not matter. Harper sat there the whole time looking down at her plate. She did not say a word, did not argue for or against the decision, but I could see this tiny smile at the corner of her mouth. She was pleased. This was what she wanted. I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. I did not want to create a scene. I did not want to be the difficult one, the ungrateful son who could not do this one thing for his struggling sister. So I swallowed my frustration, nodded, and said those words that I would replay in my head 1,000 times over the next few days. Okay, I will clear it out tomorrow. In my mind, I was already making plans. Maybe I could rent a co-working space downtown. Maybe I could soundproof my bedroom somehow. I would figure it out. I always figured it out. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30, same as always. I am an early riser, always have been. I made myself coffee, checked my emails on my phone, and mentally prepared myself for the task of packing up my office. I figured I would spend the morning carefully disconnecting my equipment, boxing up my books, and moving everything into my bedroom. It would be inconvenient, sure, but I would manage. I climbed the stairs to the second-floor, coffee mug in hand, and walked down the hallway to what had been my office. But when I opened the door, I stopped dead. Harper was already in there. She was sitting at my desk using my computer monitor. I had left my laptop unlocked the night before, because I had been working late and planned to jump right back in this morning. She was scrolling through something, and all my work documents had been shoved to the side of the desk, piled carelessly in a corner. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. She turned around completely casual, like this was the most normal thing in the world. "Dad said I could start using this space today," she replied. Her tone was light, almost cheerful. I felt my jaw tighten, but I said I would clear it out today, I told her. Not that you could start using it immediately. She shrugged one of those dismissive little shrugs that made me want to scream. He said you agreed, so I thought it was fine. I looked around the room and felt my stomach drop. Some of her stuff was already there. A makeup bag on the shelf I had installed. A pile of clothes on the chair I had bought. They had planned this. They had been waiting for me to say yes, and the second I did, they moved on it. I had a client meeting at 10 in the morning, one I could not reschedule. It was with a company we had been trying to land for months, and I was the lead on the project. I needed that office, needed the quiet space, needed the professional setup. I asked Harper as calmly as I could if she would mind leaving the room for 2 hours, so I could take my meeting. She looked at me like I had asked her to climb a mountain. "I need to work too," she said. Work on what I wanted to ask, but I bit my tongue. She was not working. She was scrolling through Instagram. I ended up taking the meeting in my bedroom. I pushed my bed against the wall, set up my laptop on my dresser, and prayed the lighting would not be terrible. But the walls in that house are thin, and my bedroom is right above the living room. My dad was downstairs watching the news at full volume. I could hear the television through the floor. Halfway through my presentation to the client, they could hear it too. One of them politely mentioned the background noise, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. I apologized, said I was dealing with some home renovations, and tried to push through, but the damage was done. I looked unprofessional. I sounded unprofessional. After the meeting ended, I went downstairs to find my dad. He was still on the couch, remote in hand, watching some political talk show. I stood in front of the television and told him we needed to talk. He muted the TV, but did not turn it off. I explained the situation. "Dad, I need that space for work. I have client meetings. I have deadlines. This is my career we are talking about." He cut me off before I could finish. "You are living in our house," he said. "We have the right to use our space however we want." His tone was final, like he was a judge delivering a verdict. "But I am paying rent," I reminded him. $1,200 a month. That is not nothing. He actually laughed at that. A short, sharp laugh that felt like a slap. "That rent barely covers utilities," he said, which was absolutely not true. $1,200 was more than fair for a single room in their house, and we both knew it. My mother walked by just then, carrying a laundry basket. She heard the tail end of our conversation and paused. "Do not make this a big deal." "Alonzo," she said softly, like I was the one being unreasonable. Then she just kept walking. The next few days were a nightmare. I tried to make it work. I really did. On the first day I set up at the dining room table. I had a deadline to meet code, to write documents to review. But Harper decided that was the perfect day to blast music in her new office. My office, the one I had built and paid for. I could hear every beat through the ceiling. I went upstairs and knocked on the door. She opened it, headphones around her neck, looking annoyed that I had interrupted her. "Could you turn the music down?" I asked. "I am trying to work." She rolled her eyes. "This is my space now," she said. "I can do what I want." Then she closed the door in my face. On the second day, I noticed some of my things were missing. My noise-canceling headphones, the expensive ones I had bought specifically for calls. My desk lamp, the one with adjustable brightness that I used for late-night work sessions. I found them in the office being used by Harper like they were hers. When I asked for them back, she acted surprised. "They were in the room," she said. "I thought they came with it." Came with it. Like the room was a hotel and my personal belongings were complimentary amenities. I took my things back, but when I mentioned it to my parents, they told me siblings should share. They made me feel like I was being petty for wanting my own stuff back. By the third day, I got an email from my boss. It was not mean, but it was pointed. He asked if everything was okay, mentioned that my work quality had dipped recently, noted that I had missed a couple of small deadlines. My heart sank. My job was at risk. The career I had built over years was being threatened because I could not find a quiet place to work in my own home. The fourth day was more of the same. I tried working in my bedroom again, but Harper developed this habit of knocking on my door constantly. She needed to borrow a phone charger. Did I have any snacks? Could she use my printer? Each interruption pulled me out of my focus, cost me time, cost me productivity. Then came the fifth day, the breaking point. I had a video meeting scheduled with my entire team and our vice president. It was important, a quarterly review where we presented our progress and set goals for the next 3 months. I made sure my bedroom was clean, my lighting was decent, my background was professional. I logged on 5 minutes early, tested my audio and video, and felt as prepared as I could be under the circumstances. The meeting started well. I was presenting my section, walking through metrics and project updates when my bedroom door flew open. Harper did not knock. She just walked right in, loud and oblivious. "Do you have any thumb drives I can use?" she asked at full volume. My camera was on. My microphone was on. Every single person on that call, including the vice president, saw and heard her. The looks on their faces, the surprise, the second-hand embarrassment, it was unbearable. I muted myself as fast as I could, turned off my camera, and hissed at Harper to get out. She finally realized what she had done and backed out of the room, but the damage was done. When I turned my camera back on, I apologized profusely, made some excuse about family being home unexpectedly, and tried to finish my presentation. But my hands were shaking. My voice was unsteady. After the meeting, I got a private message from the vice president. "Is everything okay at home?" he asked. "This is affecting your professionalism." I stared at those words on my screen and felt something inside me snap. Not break exactly, but shift. A clarity I had not had before. That evening I did not go down for dinner. I stayed in my room and thought. Really thought. About how I had been treated. About how I had let myself be treated. I had been accommodating, flexible, understanding. And where had it gotten me? My workspace was taken. My belongings were used without permission. My career was suffering. And my family, the people who were supposed to support me, did not seem to care at all. Around 8 in the evening, I went downstairs and asked everyone to sit at the kitchen table. My dad looked annoyed at being pulled away from his TV show, but he came. My mom set down the book she was reading. Harper wandered in looking bored. I stood at the head of the table and laid it all out. I explained how my job was being affected. I told them about the email from my boss, the message from the vice president. I explained that I could actually lose my job over this, that I was not being dramatic, that this was serious. My father leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You are overreacting," he said. "Just adapt." That word adapt, like I was the problem. Like I was not trying hard enough. I turned to Harper and said something I had been holding back for days. Harper is not even seriously looking for work. She is using that office to play games and scroll on her phone. Harper's face went red. "That is not true," she shot back. "I have been applying to jobs." I asked her a simple question. "How many applications have you submitted this week?" She went quiet. My mother tried to smooth things over like she always did. "Can you two just compromise?" she said gently. I suggested we split the room by hours, or that Harper could use the living room for her job search, since she did not need professional equipment like I did. My father shut it down immediately. "Harper needs her own space," he said. "You are older. You should be more understanding." That phrase hit me hard. "You are older." Like age meant I was supposed to accept whatever they decided. Like I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of being walked over. Then my dad added something that made everything crystal clear. "Besides, you should be thinking about moving out at your age. It is weird for a 32-year-old man to still live at home." There it was. After everything I had contributed, all the money I had paid, all the help I had given, I was still just a burden to them. An embarrassment. I stood there looking at my father, at my mother who would not meet my eyes, at Harper who was staring at her phone, and I realized something. I had been waiting for them to see my side, to understand, to care. But they never would. This was who they were, and I needed to stop expecting them to change. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through options and possibilities. By the time the sun came up, I had made my decision. I was done waiting for respect that would never come. I was going to take action. I spent that morning on my laptop researching apartments. I looked at listings in downtown Philadelphia, places close to co-working spaces and coffee shops, places where I could build a life that was actually mine. Within 2 hours, I found a studio apartment that was perfect. It was small but clean, with good light and enough space for a proper home office setup. The rent was $1,500 a month, only $300 more than what I was paying my parents. I called the landlord, scheduled a viewing for that afternoon, and went to see it during my lunch break. The place was even better in person. Hardwood floors, a decent kitchen, a bathroom that was not falling apart. I could see myself there. I could see myself being happy there. I filled out the application on the spot, and by that evening, I got the call. I was approved. They wanted me to move in at the end of the week. I paid the security deposit and first month's rent right then and there over the phone, using the money I had been saving for emergencies. This was an emergency, just not the kind I had imagined. I signed the lease electronically and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had a way out. The next day, I rented a small moving truck. I also did something else. I rented a desk at a co-working space downtown for the rest of the week. It cost $200, but it was worth every penny. I packed up my laptop and essential work gear and spent my days there away from the chaos of my parents' house. My productivity shot back up immediately. No interruptions, no background noise, no Harper barging and asking for things. My boss noticed the improvement right away and sent me a message saying whatever I had done to get back on track, keep doing it. The ironic thing was during that entire week, nobody at home asked where I was going every morning. Nobody wondered why I was not working from the house anymore. They just did not care. And that confirmed everything I needed to know. Harper, meanwhile, had completely taken over the office. She had even repainted the walls a bright pink, without asking anyone. My parents did not say a word about it. That room I had invested $3,000 into, that space I had built from nothing, was now unrecognizable. Saturday morning came moving day. I woke up before sunrise and started quietly packing my things. Clothes, toiletries, books, my laptop, and work equipment. I had already moved most of my office furniture during the week piece by piece, so it would not be obvious. The desk I had bought, the chair, the shelves, the acoustic panels, all of it went into a storage unit I had rented. I was not leaving any of it behind. The moving truck arrived at 7 in the morning. I started loading boxes, and that is when my father woke up. He came outside in his bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, and stared at me. "What are you doing?" he asked, genuinely confused. "I am moving out," I said, simply not stopping my work. "Moving out," he repeated. "Where?" "I found my own place," I told him. "I am done here." My mother came rushing out, next, her face full of concern. "But where are you going?" she asked. "Why did you not tell us?" "I did not see the point in announcing it," I said. "You made your decision about the office. This is my decision." Harper appeared at the door, still in her pajamas, and looked past me into the truck. Then she looked up at the now empty second-floor window. "But the furniture," she said weakly. "That is my furniture," I replied. "I paid for everything in that room. Every shelf, every piece of equipment, every improvement. It is all mine, and it is coming with me." My father tried one last time to assert control. "You cannot just leave like this," he said, his voice getting louder. "We need to talk about this." I stopped loading the truck and turned to face him. "We already talked," I said calmly. "You told me what you wanted. I tried to explain what I needed. You did not listen. So now I am making a choice for myself." My mother reached for my arm. "What about family dinners?" she asked. "What about staying connected?" I gently pulled my arm back. "I will visit," I told her honestly, "but I need my own space. A space where I am respected." Before I climbed into the truck, I left an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was $1,200 in cash, the rent for that month, even though I was leaving, and a short letter explaining my decision. I did not write it out of anger. I wrote it because I wanted them to understand, even if I knew they probably never would. There was no yelling, no doors slamming, no dramatic exit. I just got in the truck, started the engine, and drove away from that house. In my rearview mirror, I could see the three of them standing in the driveway, watching me go. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could breathe. The first week in my new apartment was strange. The quiet was almost overwhelming after months of constant noise and interruptions. But it was a good kind of strange. I set up my workspace in the corner of the studio, arranged my desk and chair, hung my acoustic panels, and created an environment that was truly mine. No one could take it from me. No one could barge in uninvited. My work improved dramatically. Within the first week, I finished 2 projects ahead of schedule. My boss sent me an email complimenting my recent performance, saying it was great to have me back at full capacity. The vice president, who had expressed concern after the video call incident, reached out as well, noting the positive change. It felt good. It felt like I was finally being seen for my actual abilities, not judged by circumstances beyond my control. By the end of the first month, I received a performance bonus. It was not huge, but it was recognition of the work I had been putting in. I used some of that money to buy new furniture, things that fit my style rather than just making do with whatever was cheap or available. I got a comfortable reading chair, some plants for the windowsill artwork that I actually liked. The apartment started to feel like home. I also started meeting my neighbors. There was a couple in their 40s across the hall who worked in education, and a graduate student downstairs who was studying architecture. We would run into each other in the lobby, or the shared laundry room and chat. It was nice to be around people who treated me like an equal, who respected boundaries, who understood that we all had our own lives to live. I kept going to the co-working space a few times a week, even though I did not need to anymore. It turned out to be great for networking. I met other remote workers, freelancers, small business owners. We would grab coffee between meetings or have lunch together. One guy I met there worked in the same industry and ended up referring me for a consulting opportunity that brought in extra income. 2 months after I moved out, my phone rang. It was my father. I almost did not answer, but curiosity got the better of me. When I picked up, his voice was different. Not softer exactly, but less commanding, less sure of itself. He asked how I was doing, made small talk about the weather, then got to the real reason for his call. Things were tight financially, he said. They were feeling the loss of my $1,200 a month. Harper still had not found a job, and they were covering all her expenses. He did not quite ask me to come back, but the implication was there hanging in the air between us. I told him I was doing well. I told him about my apartment, about the bonus I had received, about how my career was thriving now that I had a stable work environment. I did not rub it in. I just stated facts. Then he asked carefully if I had thought about moving back home. I could tell it cost him something to ask, to admit that maybe they had made a mistake. I told him no, gently, but firmly. I explained that I had built a life here, that I was happy that this was where I needed to be. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, he said he understood, and that he hoped I would still come visit. I told him I would, and I meant it, but on my terms with boundaries in place. 3 months in, I got a call from a recruiter. One of the contacts I had made at the co-working space had recommended me for a senior position at a growing company. The role came with a significant salary increase and better benefits. I went through the interview process, and they offered me the job. I accepted. My career had not just recovered from those difficult weeks in my parents' house. It had actually grown stronger. Around that time, Harper finally got a job. It was entry-level, nothing glamorous, but it was work. My mother called to tell me, her voice cautious, like she was not sure how I would react. I told her I was happy for Harper, and I was. I did not wish failure on my sister. I just wished she had figured things out without it costing me so much. The first time I went back to visit was 4 months after I moved out. I drove out on a Sunday afternoon, stayed for dinner, and left that same evening. It was cordial but distant. Harper and I made polite conversation. My parents asked about my job and my apartment. Nobody mentioned the office or the circumstances of my leaving. It was like we had all agreed to pretend it had not happened. But here is the thing. I had changed. I was not the same person who had nodded along at that Tuesday dinner and agreed to give up my space without a fight. I had learned something crucial about myself. I had learned that being kind did not mean being a doormat, that loving your family did not require sacrificing your own well-being, that sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for yourself and for others is to establish clear boundaries and stick to them. I started seeing a therapist around this time, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand why I had let things get as bad as they did, why I had waited so long to stand up for myself. Through those sessions, I realized I had spent most of my life trying to be the easy child, the one who did not cause problems, the one who kept the peace at any cost. But that version of myself was not sustainable. It was not healthy. My therapist helped me see that what I had done moving out and creating my own life was not abandonment or selfishness. It was self-preservation. It was recognizing my own worth and refusing to accept less than I deserved. Those sessions gave me language for things I had been feeling but could not quite articulate. My relationship with my family gradually found a new equilibrium. I visit them once a month now, sometimes twice if there is a holiday or special occasion. But I do not stay overnight. I do not slip back into old patterns of being the fix-it person or the one who always gives in. When my dad asks me to help with a project around the house, I decide whether I have the time and energy, and I say no if I do not. It is still strange saying no to my parents, but it gets easier each time. Harper and I have started talking more. Real talking, not just surface-level pleasantries. She actually apologized to me a few months ago. We were both at our parents' house for Thanksgiving, and she pulled me aside. She said she had not realized how much that situation had affected me, how much I had been struggling. She said she had been so focused on her own problems that she could not see mine. I appreciated the apology even if it came late. It felt like a step towards something better, even if we would never be as close as we were as kids. The biggest lesson I learned through all of this is about respect. You cannot force people to respect you. You cannot convince them with logic or kindness, or by doing everything right. Respect has to be given freely, and if someone is not willing to give it, you have to respect yourself enough to walk away. That is what I did. I walked away from a situation where I was undervalued and built a life where I am appreciated, starting with appreciating myself. I do not regret the 2 years I spent living with my parents. Those years taught me things about myself, about family dynamics, about what I will and will not tolerate. They taught me that sacrifice has its limits, that self-care is not selfish, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most can hurt you the deepest, not because they are cruel, but because they are thoughtless. My apartment is small, just a studio with one main room and a tiny kitchen, but it is mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every choice about how to use the space is mine to make. That freedom is worth more than square footage. That autonomy is worth more than the money I save or spend. I wake up every morning in a place where I am not walked over, not taken for granted, not expected to shrink myself to make room for someone else's comfort. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things went down with my family. They ask if I wish I had handled it differently, communicated better, tried harder to make them understand. My answer is always the same. I did try. I tried to explain. I tried to compromise. I tried to make it work. But at a certain point, trying becomes enabling. At a certain point, flexibility becomes self-erasure. I reached that point, and I chose myself. I would make that choice again. The story of that Tuesday night dinner of my dad's announcement and my quiet acceptance could have ended differently. I could have stayed in that house, worked from my bedroom or the dining table, let my career suffer, let my mental health deteriorate, all in the name of keeping the peace. I could have told myself that family comes first, that good sons do not leave, that complaining about unfairness is childish. But I did not. I chose a different ending. I chose to leave. And that choice saved me. If there is one thing I want anyone reading or hearing this to understand, it is this. You are allowed to put yourself first. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to leave situations that hurt you, even if those situations involve people you love. Especially if those situations involve people you love. Because love should not cost you your dignity. Love should not cost you your dreams. Love should not cost you your peace of mind. I am 32 years old, living in a studio apartment in downtown Philadelphia, working a job I am good at, building a life I am proud of. I visit my parents once a month. I am civil with my sister. I have boundaries that I maintain without guilt. And for the first time, in a very long time, I am genuinely happy. Sometimes the best decision is not the easiest one. But looking back now, leaving that house was the moment I truly started living. Because respect is not something you beg for. It is something you give yourself by knowing when to walk away. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where family members took advantage of your kindness? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. someone who might be struggling with similar decisions about boundaries and self-respect. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gives you permission to choose yourself when you need to. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember your well-being matters just as much as anyone else's. See you in the next one.